Front opinions on the week's major stories. Let me introduce my guests once again. Anne-Elisabeth Moutet, columnist for the Sunday Telegraph. Régis Le Sommier, deputy editorial director at Paris Match. Tony Crouagnes, Paris correspondent for TV3. And Craig Capitas, correspondent at large for Quartz, the Atlantic group, which launches, the publication Quartz launches on Sunday. Now, a new hiccup in the Romney campaign. An embarrassing video of the Republican nominee emerged this week. It was shot during a private fundraiser with wealthy donors earlier this year. You can hear Romney writing off half of the American voting population. Let's listen.
Shot a few months ago without the candidate's knowledge.
Vote for the president no matter what. All right, there are 47% who are with him, who are dependent upon government, who believe that they are victims, who believe that government has a responsibility to care for them. And so my job is not to worry about those people. I'll never convince them that they should take personal responsibility and care for their lives. What I have to do is convince the 5 to 10% in the Senate that are independent.
All right, Mitt Romney there saying 47% of the American electorate is with him, meaning Barack Obama. My job is not to change their minds and make them vote for me. My job is to get the couple of percentage points in the middle that could tip this my way. In other words, he's not even trying to get half of the electorate. Craig Capitas, how bad is this?
You call it a hiccup. It's more like an unintentional personal protein spill. He blew it on this one. We've seen the real Mitt Romney here. Mitt Romney is a businessman. He's not a politician, but he's a very special kind of businessman. He's a consultant. He's the guy who comes in for a lot of money when a major corporation does not have the smarts to do something, to save money, to do something new. They go into all the big companies. The board of directors brings these people in. I've covered these people for years. They go in and they start looking at things through what's called managerial metrics and data. They make decisions based solely on trying to cost save.
Your point?
The point is the Republican Party hired themselves a management consultant. And it's a cost killer. And it's not working because you cannot metric the American public like this. Real quick example here in France, to put it in some context for you. There's a magic number in France. I believe it's 49. If you have more than 49 employees in a corporation, for instance, you get hit with extra social charges. So what a management if you have a company here in France, and let's say it has 60 people who are all working very hard, they bring in a management consultant, they say, well, you can save money here if you cut it down to 49. No one says, well, those other people who you want us to get rid of, they're actually doing a lot of good work. It doesn't matter. We'll metric them out. That's what you see going on here. That's what you're seeing in this speech. You're seeing a management consultant in action.
Régis, let's just get the reaction. We're going to go to you straight after this. Let's just get the reaction from Barack Obama, because, of course, the Democrat pounced on this. Barack Obama.
My expectation is that if you want to be president, you got to work for everybody, not just for some. And
well, of course, this was an obvious comeback.
And what Craig has been is well, nicely put. But I would say you get to the bottom of this. I think Mitt Romney is right.
That's the Republican argument, that he can use this. He can even use this to his advantage.
Everybody does in elections. Everybody has this reasoning.
Yeah.
You think the people who organized the campaign for Hollande were not counting on the people in the independents in the middle? They all do.
Régis.
Yeah, but look at the electoral map. You're never going to change New York State or California to make them turn red, or Texas turn blue. So each time you have to fight for a bunch of people in the middle of Ohio, Florida, and a bunch of other states, which are no different than other Americans, except you have to fight for them.
You don't call them freeloaders, though.
No, I know. The way
you're right.
I think that is the big problem. That actually, more than that, the problem is that he talked about this 47% of Americans being calling themselves victims.
Yeah.
Exactly. And at the same time, he talked about Palestinians in a very bad way.
He
actually, that was a video gaffe.
That's actually a vote getter.
The problem is that we're very close to the election. He's not getting out there. He tried it with choosing a ticket, a partner who was supposed to get all the base of the Republican Party and put him on the streets, and it didn't work.
Paul
the problem
Ryan,
is that
his running mate.
he's maybe not getting it.
But the question is, how bad is this for him? Because it's true that Régis was making the point. After all,
he's being honest.
He's being honest, and this is an argument that's been floated.
It's not that bad for him. That the problem is the rhythm of the campaign. That he's not winning any point. You know, that's the problem. He's losing
the
time.
problem is at this point he should have
react to that.
secured his base. He should have secured his people.
Yes.
He should have.
Surely
all
his
the
base is
Republican-
not inflamed by this kind of statement.
No,
no, they're very
absolutely
happy
not.
with it.
But you
He
do that.
insulted
You do
a
that at the
huge
beginning.
Slice of the American public.
But people who Régis is saying are not his base.
Well, Regis's argument is different, and it's a correct argument. When Regis says he can give up California, Romney can give up California, he can give up New York, he's absolutely right.
Only Reagan can win California.
Yeah, California. But you don't go in and insult the American people, say they're freeloaders, and make them little data bits. Mitt, you know, there's an old expression. You know, you put one foot in your mouth, you got a problem. You know, you put 2 feet in your mouth. The euphemism is double down, which is Mitt Romney has done here. But double down is actually a euphemism for talking out of the only orifice left that's open, and that's precisely what went on here. No, regardless of what your politics are, what Mitt Romney said was insulting.
The problem is that it's not activating his base, but instead is activating Obama's base. That's the problem.
Yes, it's working for Obama.
Excellent point.
It's working for Obama. Because
point.
Otherwise, what's interesting is that he's actually been gaining traction in some polls, but he's losing traction in swing states. And we know perfectly well that there are 5 or 6 states, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, 1 or 2 others, and he is losing traction in those states. And that really could lose him the election, even if he gets more votes than Obama. That was something that really did not work out.
The big thing here is what Romney showed was the vapidity of the Republican Party. That this was the only person that they could go to put up to be the candidate for president of the United States. It's tragic.
All right, let's switch to the controversy over a French scientific experiment on genetically modified foods. After feeding GM maize to 200 rats for several years, the scientists found that it did this to the rats: tumors the size of ping pong balls. It also found increased organ damage and reduced life expectancy. The experiment is a big deal because it's the first study that blames GM food for its negative impact on health. Now, Régis, you'd seen these pictures, right?
Of course I did, yeah.
Does this make you question what you buy in the supermarket and what you eat, or not?
If it would make me question this, then I would go back, 10 years ago and think, I've been eating that for 10 years. Am I feeling, like I'm, spreading tumors in my body or stuff like that? But I don't think so. But it's certainly of worry.
So you see rats getting cancer from eating GM foods from, by the way, I forgot to explain, the one of the biggest names in the business, Monsanto. One of the biggest.
Yeah, and they didn't want to answer to any journalist request, and they've been always working secretly. That's true.
So you're not worried?
I'm not worried. I lived in the U.S. Let me give you a little side story on that. I lived in the U.S. for 6 years. I was the Paris Match correspondent in New York, and I totally have forgotten that in grape you have seeds. Because when you're in the U.S., there's no seeds.
That's true.
And when I came back here, I said, that's strange. Of course, over
what
there,
are these crunchy things in grapes?
Yes, and
seeds.
That's a genetically modified grape, and they, and the Americans have had that. Not that the American health is very enjoyable or very something you want to look for, but
so what you're saying is you're used to this. You don't really question.
I would say, if I were to get worried now, of course, when I have a young baby, I'm gonna when I use biofood and more, be conscious of that. But if the damage has been done, it's it's already
because the problem is that buying biofood means really that it's completely bio. Because
and then again we're going to hear that another study is going to tell us that bio has some.
There's no borders for that.
Thing inside.
But
GM food is if it's not eaten by you, it's eaten by the animals that you end up eating. So somehow it gets to you.
So
what?
Are you worried?
But at the same time, the pictures were
I'm invoking the Charlie Hebdo defense.
Well, all of you who lived in the U.S. for several years, you're a lost
right
cause.
to
No,
a
but
free
seriously,
press does not necessarily mean that I have to read about it. So you guys were looking at these photos, and I'm going, these are as bad as the cartoons of Muhammad. I don't want to know about this.
No, but there's a point to be made about the research and development in agriculture. The planet can feed its population. If it doesn't feed people in some areas, it largely has got to do with logistics and not with the fact that we can do this. So the idea that suddenly we're going to all turn into Luddites and say, oh, this is horrible, we have to forbid absolutely everything, it is very dangerous. It's the sort of knee-jerk reaction to a study like this. Certainly we should look at the study, that perhaps there should be a larger group than 200 rats, and we should be careful about this. But the idea that everything that's being done in genetically modified plants and in general in research, that is truly terrifying, because that means that we're depriving ourselves from the means of feeding ourselves. And I think we should not sort of throw away all science because one study has shown something that we have to pay attention to.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's very secretive. All what is being done about that is very secretive. So that's
You don't just have Monsanto, you have INRA in France, and they're not that secretive, but José Bové, the Green leader, decided to destroy the cultures of French manufactured genetically modified plants because he was against it as a matter of principle. And I'm saying this is very dangerous, because all you're doing is giving all power to Monsanto.
And Elizabeth, before we end the show, I want your take on the topless pictures of Kate Middleton. French gossip magazines. Oh, I see Greg Capita is very happy now. French gossip magazine Closer.
Look at the pictures.
I did. I looked at those photos. I admit it.
Why am I not surprised?
Closer published
Not the rats,
photographs
not the
of the
Charlie Hebdo,
Duchess
but
of
the
Cambridge taking off her bikini top in the privacy, it has to be said, of her holiday home in the south of France. And now that infuriated the royal couple. They sought an injunction against the magazine, which had to stop publishing the pictures and had to hand over the master copies to the royal family. The British press, it has to be said, has been indignant and refrained from publishing the snaps, but other European magazines haven't been so prudent or prudish, depending on your point of view. Great, you enjoyed the pictures.
Look. Anne's going to come down on me. I'm not British, and we were talking before the show. I don't understand the British royal family. To me, Kate Middleton is Lindsay Lohan with a brain. She's a celebrity.
No, but seriously, she's the future Queen of England.
She's part of the royal family.
I'm not one of her subjects.
Now, the question is, she's part of the royal family. Does that make a difference? Does that set her apart from other celebrities?
No, but I will tell you what makes a difference.
I can understand that.
No, but I will tell you what makes a difference.
And I'm not a subject to the royal family. The woman's a celebrity. The rest of the world, she's a celebrity.
Wait a second. There is a big difference. First of all, this is really a private home. It's not a hotel. It's a house that belongs to their cousins, the son of Princess Margaret, Viscount Linley, and his wife. Now, I happen to know where that house is. It really is far away from everything. It is in fields, woods, you name it. You've seen the pictures, and you're a specialist at Paris Match, and those pictures are taken almost a kilometre away, and they're extremely grainy. And there's a huge difference between snapping somebody in a public beach.
That was made to get those pictures. That's true.
They went to a great deal of trouble, but also, it's a private life. This is a woman that the English basically have taken to their hearts after not liking her so much, because she was nicknamed Waity Katie, because it took her 9 years to marry her prince. And now that she's got the job, she has been doing the job, and she has not set her foot wrong. She has been competent, she's been cheerful, she's been helpful, she's basically been doing the job better than those aristocratic beauties in the past, including her mother-in-law. And I might say that her late mother-in-law, Princess Diana, is the other reason why the British are feeling very uneasy about this, because at the end of the day, Princess Diana died because her car was chased by paparazzi. I will not going to say
she died because the driver
was drunk. The driver would not have driven at that speed without the paparazzi giving chase.
All the photographers were cleared on that thing.
They possibly were clear, but he would not have. He would not have driven like that. What you're saying is that if you want to move in a city not your own, in a private capacity, and I think she was very wrong. First of all, she was very wrong to have given up her police protection. Second, in that car, there were 4 people in that car: the drunk driver, the bodyguard, Dirty Al Fayed, her boyfriend, and Diana.
Let's
the only
stick with
one
the
who
present
could have
story.
driven that car properly was Diana, because as a princess, she had training from the SAS on how to drive a car in case of a terrorist attack.
Let's not
she
go
should
back
have
to
been
that.
driving the car.
Tony Granius, you have a royal family in Spain. How would this kind of pictures go down if they in Spain?
Well, I think actually, well, that's a good point, because actually, precisely because the King of Spain went to Africa and because of a
killed,
safari, at that moment everybody was talking about the crisis and doing efforts and all that. He was taken a picture with him and actually a lover. So that's this whole story has been a big
Did you say a lover?
A
I thought
lover,
it was
yeah,
a dead
exactly.
elephant that was a problem.
No. Well, the
And so, what
elephant
was the
the
reaction to
excuse,
that?
but
What was the
actually-
reaction to that?
Well, the reaction was that actually he had to go out and say, "Look, I'm really sorry. It's never going to happen again."
Okay,
He
but
said
that's
that on the elephant.
On the
but that's-
television. Well, that's the problem. He
that's
didn't
how-
actually say it was the elephant. It was the lover.
But he
it's true.
apologized for his behavior, whereas
Yeah.
Anne Elizabeth Moutet pointed out the obvious: they weren't doing anything wrong in this particular instance. When we're
Regis
talking about Prince
that's
William.
Regis
typical.
has the point. This
That's
is
typically
point.
the problem. They weren't doing anything wrong. They were in a house in the south of France, near the middle of fields. How come a photographer go so close to the house to take those pictures? Even if it's with a powerful camera, that could have been a gun, and where that guy would have targeted the royal heirs, William and Kate. He could have shot them, and I think there's a deep question of security. That would never happen to the president of the United States. I mean, the Secret Service would have probably swept the area and make this not accessible to a photographer, because the story behind is that the pictures that you've seen in Closer first actually appeared in La Provence, which is the local paper, made by a different photographer. Kate was with her bra on, and she was taken in the exact same position, and the photographer from Closer came a day after and took the same
More
picture,
pictures.
except this time she was topless.
Jackpot.
So that just underscores the extent of the
and
access.
and my
security.
point, my point
The
is
security.
that if you speak of privacy, if you're
All right.
complaining about those pictures, then why don't you sue La Provence? Because they actually took pictures which are in a private area, and nobody cared about them because she had her bra on. So they
Regis
made
Le
a
Sommier,
point.
thank
So
you very much.
it's really a question of double standards for the two newspapers, but also it's an obvious breach of security.
Interesting information there from Regis Le Sommier on the behind-the-scenes explanation on those pictures. Thank you very much to all our very opinionated guests for joining me on set this evening. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.